From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Protecting farmers' mental health.
But as a farmer, there's so many things. You can do the very best job you can, but there's so many things out of our control.
There's a new resource farmers can turn to in Georgia as parts of Texas get inundated with rain, while other parts of the country fight for a single drop.
We know that this type of drought stress is definitely putting a toll on our yield potential.
The latest on the nation's winter wheat crop right now on AgDay.
AgDay, presented by Pioneer. What's next happens when the testing grounds meet the proving grounds. Pioneer. What's next happens here.
Good morning, I'm Clint Griffiths. While drought conditions are continuing to lessen their grip across the country, one crop is continuing to suffer. We're talking about the nation's winter wheat crop. Right now, 28% of the nation's crop is in drought. That's up 18% from the beginning of last month. AgDay's Michelle Rook joins me. Michelle, the top winter wheat producing state, Kansas, is in the bullseye of this.
Right, Clinton, there is a definite dividing line in the Central Plains. Now, specifically in Kansas, the central and western half of the hybrid winter wheat areas are on the dry side of that line and seeing conditions and yield prospects continue to slide. And of course, that's not good news for producers. Drought is intensifying in parts of Kansas, which is taking its toll on the hard-red winter wheat crop, and conditions have deteriorated quickly. A week ago, the wheat was rated at only 31% good to excellent, with 31% also rated poor to very poor. This week's good to excellent rating was unchanged, but poor to very poor increased another 2%. The Southwest is the bullseye due to multi-year drought, but the dryness extends east beyond that.
In many cases, you'll notice that western Kansas has pretty tough wheat conditions just because of poor stand establishment. Central part of the state has been dry, just clear from, well, if you look during the winter, there were some times where the central part of the state was showing D3, so that would be extreme drought conditions. And so they've been fighting this a lot of the winter and it hasn't improved very much this spring.
The stress is pushing the crop, and it's hitting its critical development stages much earlier than normal. Plus, there's disease pressure, including stripe rust. This will impact production potential.
We know that this type of drought stress is definitely putting a toll on our yield potential. We always talk about the potential for tillers to be productive tillers and add to our yields. And when we get into drought stress or any type of stress, the last tiller formed is the first tiller to go.
These crop concerns are resulting in wheat futures adding weather premium, and the cash market is reflecting that in Kansas as well.
It's not all elevators, but the very terminal bids, probably filling a train, something like that, moving to the higher side. So without question, it's a dramatic change, and our expectations of lower Kansas hard red winter wheat production certainly play into that, along with some of these international influences.
From 55 to 60% of Kansas has topsoil and subsoil moisture ratings at short to very short, and it doesn't look like that will change anytime soon. Most of the rain has fallen farther east in the state.
And I'll be honest, once you put dry air in place, it's very difficult to overcome that because the first bit of moisture that comes in there has to go to just moistening the atmosphere before you even get moisture out of it.
And he says when the moisture does finally come, it's usually accompanied by severe weather. Crop Scouts will get a better idea of just how much drought has lowered production during the Kansas Wheat Crop Tour next week. I'm Michelle Rook reporting for AgDay.
All right, thanks, Michelle. Drought not as much of a factor when it comes to corn and soybean planting. We received a new look at planting Monday from USDA. It says corn planting is now running behind with 36% planted. That's 3% behind the 5-year average. Now, the I-states of Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, all running slightly behind the 5-year average. While soybeans are now 25% planted, that's still 4% ahead of the 5-year average. Severe weather is hitting the central part of the U.S. to start the week, from northernmost Texas to South Dakota. However, the rest of Texas getting some relief finally after deadly floods over the weekend. Storms brought 9 inches of rain in a span of 6 to 8 hours in some areas from central Texas to the Dallas-Fort Worth area. In the county that includes Houston, officials say hundreds of people and pets needed rescuing. Many residents remember Hurricane Harvey back in 2017 and know what severe weather can do.
It's very scary. I'm threatened every time this water comes up.
In central Texas, asphalt on a bridge is in pieces due to floods, and police say the storm turned the city of Clifton into a kind of island. And the threat of severe thunderstorms is continuing to push east right now. Meteorologist Martin Lormore joins us with a look ahead.
Yeah, that severe threat's going to continue to be moving across the country. We had a lot of those nasty storms across Oklahoma and Kansas for our Monday. But as we get into our Tuesday, this is going to continue its way on into parts of the Great Lakes. Oklahoma will be moving that threat over toward parts of Indiana and Ohio. This will be looking at that next threat for that Tuesday afternoon. This will continue making its way past us as we get into that Wednesday time frame. The severe threat still hangs out in southern and central Indiana for your Wednesday, but we'll continue to see this pushing out of the area. Still more of that rainfall across the southeastern part of the country. Overall, severe weather threat will fall off from what we had yesterday. We're not expecting major severe weather outbreaks like we had in parts of our Monday in the center part of the country, but we'll also get a bit of a break across that Thursday and Friday as we get toward our Mother's Day. We'll be looking much better for our weekend forecast as clear skies across the center part of the country. This is not very clear skies over in Wyoming. Something you're not really seeing this time of year. It's not rain, but snow. Jim Epsby over at Wyoming saying it's still a little early for the May flowers. The snow is coming in just after he had mowed the lawn the day before. And I guess that's just the way it works this time of year, especially in those higher elevations of the West. We'll have more on the forecast coming up.
And we continue to follow the catastrophic floods in southern Brazil. It's reported 83 people have died and more than 100 people are missing. Authorities calling this the worst natural disaster to ever hit Brazil's far south, a state larger than the United Kingdom. Relentless rain has flooded over 300 towns, displacing more than 100,000 and affecting more than 250,000 people. As we told you yesterday, heavy rains and flooding has slowed soybean harvest in the area and threatened the quality of the crop. But a possible bumper supply of soybeans from Argentina could further cut into U.S. soybean exports to China. Reuters says the U.S. made up less than a quarter of China's soybean imports last year. That compares to more than half in 2009. Meanwhile, China's soybean imports have nearly doubled over the last 15 years. Argentina is the number 3 soybean grower after Brazil and the U.S. It is forecast to produce 50 million metric tons this year, more than double last year's output. And even though Brazil is expected to produce less this year, one trader says it will have ample supplies to meet demands of China. We're learning more about the dairy farm worker who came down with avian flu last month. A report in the New England Journal of Medicine about the case contained this picture. It says the worker suffered conjunctivitis with broken blood vessels in both eyes. The patient showed no other symptoms. The worker also reported no contact with sick or dead wild birds, poultry, or other animals, but said he had direct and close exposure to dairy cows that appeared to be well, and also with sick cows that showed the same signs of illness in northern Texas. Now, the worker reported wearing gloves when working with the cows, but did not use any respiratory or eye protection. He was prescribed medicine and told to stay home. The report says the issue resolved after a few days. Scientists believe it marks the first cow-to-human transmission of the virus to be reported worldwide. Not just wheat, but soybeans and corn step on the gas during Monday's trade. We'll talk about what's pushing those markets higher coming up next. And later, we're off to Georgia for Mental Health Awareness Month to see how a new program is helping farmers in the state and the country. A mixed second quarter earnings report caused Tyson's shares to drop on Monday. The largest meat supplier in the U.S. reporting sales of more than $13 billion, slightly below Wall Street's expectations. It reported improved profitability in its chicken division and says that helped offset losses in beef. It's now projecting a loss of between $100 million and $400 million for the beef unit this year. Soybeans continue their march even higher on Monday. Michelle Rook is back with more on that and the gains in corn in markets now.
Another big update on Monday in the grains. Tommy Grisafi, Advanced Trading, joins us. And Tommy, we have had this big rally going on in the grain trade. This is a weather market, but it's not just US. We're getting some problems, especially in South America, aren't we?
Yeah, my title this morning when I put out some information was South American weather trumps US weather. And we have our own little problems here in US. And then, of course, Michelle, we have to uh, figure out what's going on in Russia, which is a tough deal. I asked you before we hit play, who do you know in Russia for how their wheat is? And, we don't have any sources. So we trust some of the sources, but by the time we're finding out, it's old news. So Russia has some dry areas. They also had a frost over the weekend. And you know how wheat is. It could look bad. And then oftentimes it has 9 lives. So definitely for the first time in a long time, that Russian crop's not perfect. Go back down to South America. There's areas that are way too wet on the small area. During harvest, those bushels will be ruined. That crop, no matter how big it was, is getting smaller. Second crop, safrina, has a little trouble. Talk of dry weather.
So let's talk about the technical action. We've had chart breakouts in all of the grains. We're above 100-day moving averages and everything, including soybeans now. And so the funds are short. How much do they get out of this short position?
I imagine they're running pretty hard right now. The data is behind on that. Like when we report on Friday what they covered, it's always behind a few days. I don't like that. Definitely, they say it's a zero-sum game. For every buyer, there's a seller. Well, it took to get beans up to 35 today. All the wheats, what a day in wheat. KC wheat traded from down 20 to up 25. That's really going to catch people's attention, Michelle. And big move. Funds are in place.
As far as the funds, do they keep covering their short position or do they even go long at some point?
If the funds went from short to neutral to long right during this May-June time period, that would set us up perfect for what we traditionally have is a June high in the markets. And so folks are getting ready to make scale up sales. They're protecting these bushels with put options.
Thanks so much for joining us. Tommy Gersafi with Advanced Trading. We'll have more AgDay coming up.
Watch Markets Now with Michelle Rook on the Farm Journal YouTube channel, keeping you updated throughout the day on the markets at the open, midday, and close. Find out what moved the markets today and what to expect the market to do next.
Interested in spending a day with a trader? Call Tommy Gersafi at 800-664-4383.
Hey there, everyone. We're still talking about that severe weather risk moving out of the central part of the country and into the more easterly portions of the U.S. Now, we can see right here a little bit of a bullseye across parts of Indiana and Ohio. Does include part of Cincinnati, moving its way pretty close to Columbus. But again, watching that severe weather risk across most of the eastern portion of the country for our Tuesday. As we get into our Wednesday, this threat moves its way back south as the system itself moves south, reinvigorating some of that severe weather threat across parts of Oklahoma, Arkansas, all the way into the Missouri and Mississippi River valleys, all the way up into the Ohio River Valley for that Wednesday. So the overall threat level moves south, but it's still going to be there for that Wednesday. And though not just the severe weather, but also the rainfall is going to be moving through. You can see several inches of rain across the eastern part of the country moving across. You can also see parts of the northwest at those higher elevations, a little bit of snow mixed in with that as well, as they're still seeing temperatures below freezing in the highest elevations. But through our Thursday, a couple places that do see that severe weather, again, stretching all the way from Arkansas all the way into the Ohio River Valley. Could be seeing upwards to 2-3 more inches of rain. So that flooding possibility is there for especially that Wednesday time frame. So look into our Tuesday, low level of risk across the Great Lakes. We go into our Wednesday. There's that threat level yet again around the same area where that severe weather is going to be going through again, along the Ohio River Valley, stretching in toward the Mississippi River again, all the way stretching down to Arkansas. Moving into that Thursday, you can see that slowly make its way south and out of the area as that low continues to push its way south. So let's look at the jet stream. I'll show you that low. Again, this is the same low that's responsible for that severe weather across the center part of the country. This continues its way across into the Great Lakes. That does give another chance for that severe weather risk on our Tuesday and into our Wednesday as we get into next week. Clayton, New Mexico. It's going to be a warm one. Temperatures upper 70s, sunny and very windy. Muncie, Indiana, you're expecting the possibility of some severe thunderstorms. High around 79 as well. Moving into Cody, Wyoming, cool and windy, high 48.
Some good news about the outbreak of H5N1 on dairy farms. North Carolina has lifted the quarantine of one dairy herd that had tested positive for the virus. That's after follow-up testing came back negative. The state says the herd was the only HPAI positive herd within the state. Officials say it was directly linked to a dairy herd in Texas that was clinically impacted by the virus. The NC Department of Agriculture also reporting the state's poultry achieved HPAI-free status from the World Organization for Animal Health last week. That means the state can resume exports and international trade for poultry products to other countries. The state ag commissioner adding, although the state isn't currently dealing with any avian flu cases, it's still important for farmers to continue to follow strict biosecurity and report animals with signs or symptoms of the virus. While federal officials say the nation's milk supply remains safe from the virus due to pasteurization, they're continuing to warn people about drinking unpasteurized raw milk. But Reuters reports U.S. sellers of raw milk appear undeterred by the warnings. Now, it reports many raw milk drinkers share a deep skepticism of public health officials, including the FDA. Federal health officials warn that raw milk can carry several illness-causing pathogens due to the outbreak. They point to evidence the virus has killed a large number of cats that consumed raw milk on farms where the virus was found. But one California raw milk producer says his sales have never been higher, while a Connecticut farmer says he stopped adding raw milk from his own cows to his coffee back in 2022, saying you're playing Russian roulette with a lot of things when you drink raw milk, end quote. Higher costs, lower commodity prices, bad weather, they can all cause stress for farmers, where farmers can turn for assistance to help weather the storms in the country. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and as we've reported, farming can be associated with increased levels of anxiety and depression. In Georgia, one department is stepping up to help farmers in need. John Holcomb with the Georgia Farm Monitor tells us how 988 has become a lifeline for those in the ag community.
For me, having been born in that lifestyle and raised on a farm and having a farm of my own, I know what it's like to have that generational farm where you're looking at 7 generations of people before me have farmed in North Georgia. They've had land in this state. You don't want to be the generation for that to end. And then the other thing about being a farmer, you know, if you work for a company, you're getting a paycheck every week, every 2 weeks. You know exactly what you're getting paid. And if it rains or if a storm comes through, you're still getting a paycheck. But as a farmer, there's so many things. You can do the very best job you can, but there's so many things out of our control.
In recent years, the topic of mental health has found its way into the spotlight, as there's less stigma surrounding the topic. In Georgia, the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities has even formed a hotline for those in need to be able to call, which Tanner says is just the tip of the iceberg.
988 is more than a phone number. Because you can call 988 as a law enforcement officer, as a family member, as someone who needs help themselves, whatever the case might be. And it may be something as simple as calling 988 to say, I've been depressed lately, I've got a lot of things going on financially, and I need someone I can talk to, and I have a certain type of insurance. They can help connect you to a community-based service. It may be a family member calling to say, my child is in mental health crisis and I need help. 988 can dispatch a mobile crisis team anywhere in the state of Georgia. So they will come and meet you where you are. And I think that's important for people to understand. So it's more than just talking to someone on the phone. If you need the resource, they'll come to you.
In the end, Tanner says regardless of zip code or occupation, 988 is a resource for all, but understands the complexities of mental health challenges within the ag community and wants to reassure that help is just a phone call away.
I just think that it's important for the farming community to know how much they're appreciated, because so many people don't understand where their food comes from, and they just take those things for granted. But I just want our farming community to know that I appreciate the sacrifices they make each and every day. And there's a lot of us that feel that way. and that we are here ready to stand up and provide the resources they need to be successful, because they are the backbone of our state, #1 industry in our state, and they're the backbone of our country.
Reporting in Atlanta for the Farm Monitor, I'm John Holcomb.
And our thanks to John Holcomb and the Georgia Farm Monitor for that important story. Now, the American Farm Bureau has resources online farmers across the country can check out. Just head to Farm State of Mind on the Farm Bureau website. And that's all the time we have this morning. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.